Hello and welcome to a very special episode of the LCS Report, also known as the LCS Files. We have Tanner Time, Coach Damonte with us from Shopify. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
The way we do it here is we just get right into it. So I'm just going to get right into it. In 2025, you left FlyQuest, you joined Shopify. Shopify had this like miraculous turnaround. Let's just start from like leaving FlyQuest. Why'd you leave a team that's just been constantly winning and looked like the best team in North America?
Yeah, so I think with FlyQuest, obviously that opportunity for me was huge. But something a lot of people don't really know on FlyQuest is that my coaching job on that team was the performance coach. So I was working with all esports. It wasn't just like League of Legends exclusive. It was more of like almost like a business side role, but it's not really business because I'm still very involved with competitive. And then when Shopify basically reached out to me, they're offering multiple things that are very enticing. So I think a big thing is like the fulfillment that comes with doing either an assistant coach role or a head coach role. You're kind of like a part of the main seven. And according to Riot Games, like those main seven, those are like I want to say stars, but like those are the seven people that are on the team and really active in the league. So basically that opportunity came for me, and I feel like Shopify to me was really enticing as well because it's a brand new org, and I think I've never had the opportunity to kind of try and bring a young org up, and I thought it would be a cool project to be like, okay, let's just try this. Let's just try something new. I could stay at FlyQuest and be very comfortable and just kind of like almost coast because that's how my job was set up, where I didn't really have to be extremely active in the team. I was just helping everywhere. And then, Shopify just seemed really nice because of that. It was more in the weeds of stuff.
A quick follow-up to what you said. What exactly is your role on Shopify? Because if I'm not mistaken, they had before you joined a performance coach. Now they're bringing you on. Are you? Because most of what we see is like, oh, Damonte is the vibes guy.
Yeah.
Like he makes the vibes amazing. Otherwise, our vibes would be horrible. But like, what
Yeah.
exactly is your role?
I mean, my actual title is just assistant coach. What I do, I would say, is a big mix of strategy and performance and like team building in the same sense of like how are we actually operating as a team and what are we doing? I think I ended up helping out a lot with that, especially when I first joined in Split 2. I think we found really good systems after maybe 2 months of working together, me and Revan, and then things like flowed from there, and I focused a lot more on strategy, which since like I was a pro player and I have all this experience, it almost felt like uh, it was nice to go back to doing some strategy stuff after I did performance coaching with FlyQuest for a whole year because it was kind of this. It felt like there was something missing in what I was doing because I was doing league strategy, pro play, pro mid lane coaching for 9 years, 8 years, and then I had this role where I started focusing a lot more on mental health, a lot more on team structure, a lot more on what does it actually mean to build a team and build a roster and create an environment where a team can actually win. So I feel like it's assistant coach, but I'm doing a little bit of everything, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Yeah, no, that does.
Yeah. So I know a lot of like the community has called you the vibes guy, but I think you just explained it well there that you do so much more than just coming in to make everyone happy. How do you, when you came into Shopify, who were struggling at the time, how did you like come in and identify what they need to now? What is considered one of the top teams in NA?
So when I went in, like for my first day, it was all super, everything was super new to me. I honestly had no idea what to expect. And I didn't really go in already thinking like, oh, this is what I'm going to do to fix the team. I know how to do this and that. And this is what I'm going to do. And everything's going to be great. It's more like I showed up and I just started building out relationships with every single person there. And then on like a macro scale, just like really trying to pay attention to where the boys and like the players are at mentally. Because I think when I joined, I kind of knew like, okay, we have 4 players who've won trophies before, and then we have B-Boy who is is very much like talented grinder, been doing this for a long time, and he's found almost no success on like a finish or like a placement level. So I knew that our players were talented. So when you have a talented team and the results aren't coming, there's obviously something going wrong inside of how everyone are getting along. So the first thing I did, which I talked about this before, was I basically gave the guys a week off. I was like, all right, I'm coming in. Everyone go home, go take a week, mentally reset. When you guys come in on next Monday, this is like the true start of the new Shopify 2025 team. Just forget about split one. And then we kind of just went from there, honestly. There's no one secret sauce to coaching. It's a lot of time and a lot of effort being put into just like building relationships and knowing about the game.
Yeah, and would you say immediately off the jump of that first week, did you notice a difference in the players when they immediately came back, or was it more things you needed to work on to what like you now have as like a very like solid foundation?
There was definitely an immediate sense of relief in the team. It almost felt like, okay, we know what we're doing now. We know where we're at. And that's kind of what I provided for them, was that perspective of where the team is and where we need to go. So we kind of just set those intentions on what we are trying to do. And just by already like getting the seven of us in the same room and setting the intention of, okay, we are actually pretty shit, and these are the steps we need to take to get better. It almost feels like the anxiety in the room goes down a lot because everyone understands this is where we are, this is what we're doing, this is what we're trying to get to.
So actually, this is kind of interesting because just from hearing your description of what you were doing on FlyQuest versus Shopify, you almost got promoted into Shopify, and a lot more sort of responsibility and power as well came along with that. You went from like, hey, you're like a performance coach, not even just League of Legends, not really touching the strategic side, to like your first decision is giving these players time off. You said you're also like dabbling after setting up the structures in actual gameplay and strategy. Is this your first time really doing that?
It's definitely my first coaching role with the authority of like the assistant or head coach spot. I would say on FlyQuest, I had a lot of control in the sense of everyone was very receptive to what I wanted to do. So working with NukeDuck and Mithy was amazing because they basically let me do whatever I wanted to do, which is the same with Revan. Honestly, I feel like I've found myself with some really good coaches in the last 2 years who kind of allow me the space that I want to try my things, because I feel like a lot of coaches in esports don't really care too much about, let's say, the intangibles would be a good way to put it. So them kind of allowing me to try my things and to approach it from a different way has been very nice. But yes, I think the authority that comes with this job on Shopify allows me to have a lot more impact. It feels like something I mentioned earlier was the fulfillment that comes with it. It feels like when things are going good or when things are going bad, it's a lot of it is on me. Versus on FlyQuest, it was like that was mainly on NukeDuck and Mithy, even though I was helping. It's not the same amount of control or authority.
How much of that was like learned versus sort of your ideas coming to fruition? Because like you said, you have a lot more authority to do things that maybe you never had opportunity to do. So the things that you did bring in, were they things you learned from somewhere else? Were they things you read theoretically, but now you're actually practicing?
Yeah. So in 2023, I got a performance coach hired that used to work with me when I was a pro player, Edward Cleland, Mind Body Performance. And in 2023, when I was doing role coaching, so I was coaching Palafox purely in mid lane, I did that in 2022. And then in 2023, I got this performance coach hired. And he basically agreed with me to let me be his boots on the ground while he works remote. So I worked basically 2 jobs that 2023 year. It was 1, to be the positional coach for Palafox, and then 2, really like learn and pick up and even operate some of the workshops that our performance coach were doing. And for me, it was like a cool opportunity. I was like, I really want to just try new things. I want to do whatever I can that's new, especially going from this player to coach transition. I know that it's not easy, which I think a lot of players might think. It's a whole different level of like thinking about team atmosphere, thinking about what we're actually doing versus just, hey, I'm going to wake up and I'm going to play League of Legends all day today, and I'm going to get really good at this thing in League of Legends, is way more straightforward than kind of like bigger picture coaching stuff. And that's what that performance coach, I would say, really drove into me that year, was what it actually means to be a coach.
Yeah, and I think like a follow-up to that is, what would you say was like the core things, like following your week break and coming back, that you then decided to really drive into the plays? If there was anything specific that you can talk about for how you then, for the spring split, got them to like such a higher level than what like we were seeing, even if like the record may not have like shown it as much, but the performances were a lot higher and like the standards seemed a lot higher than what it was at the start of the year.
Yeah. I think for me, in gameplay wise and strategically, one thing I really try to push on the players is to just be very efficient with what you do. I think I learned a ton from Inspired when I was on FlyQuest, just watching him play and watching him coach his teammates and watching him do everything. That it didn't change my perspective entirely on how I see the game, but it definitely made me understand that one of the biggest gaps between the bottom players and the top players is just how efficient you are on the map and how much time you're wasting. So that and team cohesion, basically how you're actually playing with your teammates, is like some of the very first basics that any team needs to really work on. So honestly, just minimizing a lot of the individual plays, and not minimizing it in the sense of like, guys, you can't like fight in your lanes, or guys, you can't try to make out plays, like, because you know, I was a pro player. You guys are, my players are going to do that. I want them to do that. But there's also a limit to everything, because if you're going to do that all day long, you are going to take away from team practice eventually. And I think it's as simple as just starting on those basics. It's you don't have to come in and teach insane macro and show T1 and copy them from the first week. It's really, so much of it is just getting used to playing with each other and like trusting each other in the game.
Yeah, the reason we were really asking this is because we don't necessarily talk with coaches that do what you do. It almost seems like you fill a niche that almost is unique to yourself. Like even performance coaches normally don't have as much experience in the game, are ex pro players as you are. So you feel this is a very unique spot where during the split, we see you come in split 2. We see Shopify slowly improving, even though we kept losing every single game. But it was very obvious that like the team morale was high, everything looked like it was going up and up. And another team that had this very similar story was Lion, but they looked completely destroyed. And it was like, is this the effect of Tanner time? Was this like just straight up the vibes that Coach Damonte was bringing in? And so it's really interesting to see how you think about just coaching a group of players.
Yeah.
And building.
I do find it funny that I'm considered the vibes guy. I mean, it makes honestly perfect sense for the kind of things that I preach, because a lot of the things that I preach is like, honestly, macro is not that important. Trust and building like friendships is unironically more powerful in taking a mid jungle 2v2 than like practicing it over and over. I don't know. It is funny because yeah, because you're right. I was a pro player for 7 years, and a lot of this never mattered to me, especially as a pro player. I wouldn't even say that I was like the best teammates. I turned into a better teammate towards like the end of my playing career, but especially early on, I was like that typical egotistical kid who just wanted to like shit on people. That's all that really mattered to me when I was younger. But I most definitely had a realization that there's so much more to this like team game than that individual prowess that people show.
Yeah, and while we can't speak on unconfirmed roster and stuff, I don't want to speak on that young player aspect, because an interview I was looking at recently was one I think you did in 2021 where you were saying that rookies need to stop doing like the flashy shit, and like that was mainly like the headline. But like, for when you're coaching a young player, how do you address like incorporating them in the team versus the teams playing around like a young player to like maybe make up for their shortcomings at like or intangibles?
Well, it's going to be Well, you're right. Actually, we can't talk too much about something.
I was just more
I
speaking
think
about
it's
like
important.
your coaching philosophy towards like
Yeah,
because you worked with FlyQuest, so you also had like young players and stuff like that.
yeah. Well, I think it's very important that you let the players express themselves. You don't really want to hold anyone back, especially younger players, because they got to this team for a reason. Like they probably did something great in solo queue, and then that solo queue play translated to academy, and then that's it, translating to LCS. So if he's going to come to LCS, and then you're going to tell him, "Hey man, you need to just farm these waves under turret and let topside carry." That's not going to work right away. But if the team actually develops into, hey, this is your role is to play safe on this team, and this is actually how we're going to win, and that's how you decide by the end of the year, that's fine. But I think in the building phase of a team, it should be really focused on the natural strengths and then figuring out how to puzzle that all together.
Because I think one of the things I always liked about Reaper's coaching early on, when he would have young players like Contracts or Licorice, is they would really play around them, and almost like those young players were putting a lot of the burden on themselves, but they were the stars of the team. Like Blabber was a big part of their early success. Like I said, Contracts and Licorice in 2018. So like it's interesting that you also kind of like share that similar like philosophy and making these players the stars and not holding them back per se.
You even see it in like NBA too with the Lakers right now. When well, I'm blanking on his name. That's embarrassing. Is it Jokic?
Oh, you mean Luca?
Yeah, Luca. When he joined the Lakers, LeBron told him in that first huddle, like, Luca, don't try to do anything. Just play your game. And then everyone is like playing around him, which is kind of it's very similar to League of Legends in that sense.
Yeah.
So here's just moving on a little bit because we are spending a lot of time on Shopify. I'm a Shopify fan, so like I'm a little biased, but I do want to get you have a extensive career as well. You finished split to top three, which no one really expected. You know, I think I asked Revan, he was like, it was 70% on us, like just playing well, and 30% on like the Team Liquid plus 100 Thieves collapses. And then you guys take a break. And I talked to him about that too, and he was like, "Yeah, it's kind of my bad. It's just like I didn't realize people were boot camping and whatnot." Um, how much of that was like actually on him? Because I know he takes responsibility for literally everything.
Yeah. I don't think it was really like purely Revan's fault. I mean, me and him, I would say we share responsibilities, so that's also on me. But yeah, we were genuinely like unaware of most of the LCS team's idea to go boot camp and then scrim during MSI, which is honestly no excuse to like anything. I feel like it's pretty unacceptable in most aspects because it wasn't a strategical choice at all. I honestly think it ended up being fine. I don't really think it was it was like a terrible thing for us to take like the extra week or two to relax. I do think obviously we missed that time of practice. But yeah, there was no. It kind of just happened, and I think everyone just assumed it was off season, which wasn't strategical either way. Which I think is actually the problem. I don't think it's a problem that we like didn't go to boot camp. I think it's a problem that we didn't think about why we should do one or the other. It was kind of just like we let it happen, and no one was aware.
The reason I bring that up is because you guys looked really shaky. You guys finished 3-0, got picked by Cloud9, thankfully, because we look shaky. But
Yeah.
primarily, it's like our mid laner looked very shaky, and there's a lot of drama around him. And he is someone that you played with before you were his, like, sorry, not played with, but you coached him directly before. And he was one of the reasons, like, being honest, he vouched for you as well, him and Contracts. So how did those like 3-4 weeks of trying to figure out how do we unrust and hey, you're going down a lot of CS in lane. Was there a specific like attention given to him?
I mean, honestly, I think like talking about Palafox in the sense of like he's just down in CS or like this kind of thing, I think is kind of a waste. I really don't think his individual play was maybe not great, but it's like it's making it almost too simple. I think not to speak on anything with like Christian too much because I don't know every single thing about like what was going on with him or anything. But I would say it did take us too long to kind of ramp up in Split 3, especially with the weird format. Everything felt like it just happened in 1 week. And it felt like we missed the boot camp and then the split was over within the span of like 6 weeks. So there was no time to recoup what we were doing, and we just started throwing band-aids on. And I think every team just started doing this. We're like, okay, let's give Palafox Annie, let's give Palafox Galio, let's do these kind of things, and maybe we could change our team identity, which was a big risk, and it didn't pay off because personally, I think Palafox excels on like strong laning mages. That's actually why I think he's amazing. He's like super good at Orianna, super good at Victor. And when we kind of decided to take him off those things, it's like, now you're taking a player who is already not doing great and you're putting him into a more supportive style role, which could help if his teammates are performing really well. And Christian also has to play well, but it also could make things worse, which I would say it did make things worse. And, I think that's just kind of how League of Legends pro play goes sometimes is things deteriorate very fast, and it can happen. It can happen, especially with like weird formats in 1 month, and then it's like, oh, okay, that happened.
Yes.
And then-
sorry, Claude. I'll ask quickly. What does like maybe not because I don't think Shopify like mental boom or anything, but what does that process like start to look like from a coaching perspective? Like, because we don't really get to see that outside of like documentary clips and stuff. When do you start to notice, okay, something's actually starting here, let's try and stop that snowball before like it happens?
I would say for gameplay, you can tell gameplay things pretty easily because I mean, you're watching the game, and me and Revan both have a feel for pro play, and we're both high elo and solo queue, so you can kind of like try and see and feel and fix these like gameplay related things. But then outside a game, I think you can really tell any of the microaggressions that happen in a team environment. I feel like when players most players are very bad at expressing their emotions. So you can kind of very quickly be like, oh, well, that player just said something extremely emotional to the other player. And then I just watch it, and then I see how the other player responds. And then from there, it's, okay, do I need to actually intervene, or are these two going to like figure out their thing by themselves? I kind of forgot the original premise of the question, but what did you say?
So I was like, what does like not like a mental boom, but when does like that process like start to be apparent to coaches that problems are starting to arise?
Yeah, I would say you could tell early on, but then I think there's a turning point generally when the coaches decide to change draft based on a player's play. I think that's like a big like, okay, this is a true like we're slapping the band-aid on now. Like let's change draft and do this. Which can also emotionally affect the players too, because I think a lot of players, especially the veterans, it's not that they can tell what's going on, because truthfully, champions like Galio and champions that like play the supportive role is like quite literally some of the best mid lane champs in the game. And if players have too much ego to like pick these champs and not think it's like, oh, I'm playing support, it's definitely a bad thing, because you watch Faker every year win worlds on these champs. Like it's obviously supportive style mid lane is really good in almost any meta. So
here's a follow up to that. At what point in the 0 and 20 scrim weeks between Cloud9 after you beat Cloud9 were you guys like, oh wait, there might be a problem here?
Oh, I mean, I think we knew there was a problem very early on in that week, if I'm being honest. And then, man, it felt like we were just trying to survive there for a little bit. Is kind of the vibe that everything was going on, because no one was screaming at each other. We weren't like super pissed or anything. Like we were mad that we could not get the results, but no one was like personally destroying someone else, which I think that could be a problem in itself in a lot of ways, where if the players and the coaches don't have enough fire to kind of get in someone's ass for underperforming, then at what point are you just gonna be like a passenger? So
yeah, because
so I asked this to Revan. I asked him, what would you do differently if you went back during that week. And I'll tell you his answer after I hear your answer. Like, if you could go back to that time when you're noticing, okay, things are starting to go downhill, what would you do differently?
Honestly, I feel like I would probably just try to have a more open discussion faster and just really address everything that was going on in the team faster. Because I felt like me personally, I felt like I was just playing too cautiously in like the coaching play style. Like I let a little bit too much things just happen without taking any action, which is a strategy in itself that I also try to do. It's like the action of inaction. I don't think I want to like impact literally everything always. I think that's actually bad. But then when I reflect on this like weeks of really poor play, maybe just like one real intense like chat, because I think we had a lot of chats during that time. And it like nullified the pain, but we didn't turn it around, which I don't know if that was to do with meta. I don't know if that was to do with like just individual play at the time, but it just felt like we could not come together as a team.
Yeah, because like
Yeah.
just for a bit of lore, like on myself, like, I had just left like my esports writing stuff, so I was pretty disconnected with how like information and how teams are doing like internally. And I, when I watched you guys after beating us, like C9, I thought, okay, you had like a pretty decent showing against FlyQuest, and then to see the performances afterwards, I was like very very shocked because it felt like not so much like a free hit versus FlyQuest, but like you had like a. It's fine if you lost, like it's FlyQuest, like it's like they're the best team.
Yeah.
But it felt like after that series, it kind of like everything just twisted. Like, was the
Yeah.
FlyQuest series like a turning point for your team? I know that there was that talk about like the 0-20 scrims, but was FlyQuest
Mhm.
series like in some ways like a nail in the coffin for this season?
I think in the timing that it happened, you could kind of consider it a nail in the coffin, which honestly makes me very sad because we easily could have been at Worlds in the second spot above 100 Thieves. Like
Yeah.
100 Thieves was always our main competition in the league anyways, because it always felt like FlyQuest was like unattainable, and then 100 Thieves and C9 were like the next step. But I do think that FlyQuest series was like we came off beating you guys, which is Cloud9. And we were feeling amazing. We were like,
Yeah.
we finally got rewarded for like the 5 months of work we put in. Like, you can't even describe how good it feels to fucking be so shit for so long and then to beat a top team in a match that it matters. Like,
Yeah.
that match mattered. You know, like we got to top 3 instantly because of that. Or top 4. I forgot the format. Need to forget it. And then you know, we were so happy, so much dopamine with everyone. And then I would say that week of practice, you know, we came into that week of practice, we were like, oh shit, maybe we're not as good as we think. Maybe we just had a really good day against Cloud9 and like started losing, played FlyQuest, got destroyed, then went 0-20 that next week. It was like you hit that pinnacle, and then it was just like a slope down, which was really hard to recover from, which we didn't recover from. Whereas 100 Thieves almost had the opposite trajectory right when that playoff started.
Yeah, I think it was kind of noticeable as well in like the show that you guys produced, the Rebels log. I think after losing to 100 Thieves, I think not Damonte, Palafox kind of sat down and said, like, guys, our scrims are going horrible. The reason we're playing horrible on stage is because we're playing horrible on scrims. We need to let go of all of our egos, or this could be our last week. And like, I'm thinking here, I'm like, we're about to play CBLOL. Like, really, last week? Like, are we that bad? And then we lose. And I'm like, okay, he knew something I didn't. And then I talked to Revan about it, and he was like, yeah.
Yeah, that was a tough loss, honestly. I don't think we expected to lose, but we definitely knew that team was not like terrible. So it was a week filled with interesting emotions, I would say, because it felt like some of us were ready to be done, which is like super disappointing. Some of us weren't ready to be done at all. Like, I think it just felt like the team was really jaded and like split in half after like those previous 2 weeks, which is really unfortunate. I think losing to Brazil, I would have loved to at least had the match against 100 Thieves, but that's how it goes.
So, very quick as I actually will move on from Shopify soon. I was trying to actually figure out how to word this, but because you've already announced just the departure, and obviously you're retaining the 4 guys from last split, what's the focus on for these players next year? Because obviously I think that next step will be to get into Worlds and compete for a championship, and these players have won before, or like most of them have.
Yep.
So how do you get them in that championship mentality that they think they're the best again?
I want them to do it for other people. I want them to do it for each other, and I really, really want them to do it for B-Boy. I think that's like the biggest thing that I'm gonna like really make sure to tell them a lot this year. That they're gonna get so sick of it that like we have to take B-Boy to Worlds. We need to get this guy some success. He's been like a pro player for like 8 years, and he plays the game 16 hours a day, and he's never been to Worlds. To me, it's just like I don't want to live in a world where like B-Boy retires without going to Worlds once. That kid deserves it so much. So like I really want them to just do it for each other and not like for themselves. I want them to like get that motivation from like, let's get my teammates to fucking Worlds, like let's do this kind of thing, because they've all done it by themselves before. They've all done it in different ways. This is going to be year 2 with 6 out of 7 of us, which is really awesome. That doesn't always get to happen. So like maintaining that perspective as well. It's just like, it's 2026 soon, and we're still playing Pro League of Legends. Especially like someone like me in like Contracts, for example. Like I've known Contracts since 2012. We used to play and go for little tournaments together online when we were both like 13 years old. And it's like, this is cool shit that we're doing, and like I really don't want the players to forget that. And to me, that's like all the motivation you need. We're fucking playing video games, getting paid, and traveling the world. It's get B-Boy to Worlds 2026.
And that should be our slogan, honestly. Like it should be on our merch and everything. And do it for B-Boy. I did want to ask you, because you said 6 out of 7 are staying this year. You had a very similar experience with FlyQuest, where pretty much everybody kind of stayed over to the next year. And this is going to kind of transition to your time in FlyQuest. But how was that transition going from 2024 to 2025 with the same team? We heard we saw some of the cracks kind of open. You even mentioned oh, now that I'm off the team, I can kind of see the cracks of you maintain the same roster for long enough, these kind of interactions are going to happen. So could you talk a little bit about the transition to 2025 and maybe not finding that immediate success as well?
Yeah, I mean, when we went from Gen G Game 5 on FlyQuest to off season and then back to starting 2025 up, it definitely felt a little bit slow, especially because I think we ended pretty late that year. We ended in the middle of November. So by the time we were done with Worlds, off season was already over, and it just felt okay, you guys have 3-4 weeks left to just chill, and then we're gonna get back after it again. And I would say we had a relatively slow start into January of 2025 with FlyQuest. It kind of felt like we didn't really establish a new year very well. It kind of felt like we kind of just jumped into it, and we were just following off from last year. It just felt okay, we're all back here, and we're all just playing League of Legends Pro Play again, and let's go do that as a team, and let's scrim every day, and let's play regular season LCS and do our thing. And I think a lot of that came from Inspired, I would say, because Inspired is very much his goal is to go to internationals and to win. So I think inherently the LCS is very boring for him, and that creates a big problem in his teams, I would say, because if he ever gets to that point where he doesn't want to be bothered to play or teach his teammates what he thinks, and he's also too bored to do these things, it can really negatively impact his teammates in the environment, which I do think happened in FlyQuest. Which, me being the performance coach, I wish I was able to help him more and actually make an impact on how he sees those kind of things. Which is what I've told Inspired this when I was working with him that whole year. I was you could be I mean, he already is on a play level, one of the best players to ever play in the West. But he also has a chance to be the best leader, the best teammate, and win Worlds by doing these things with his play. and he wasn't able to do that and get over like I would say his like perspective, his perspective on his career and everything last year. But this is such a tangent about Inspired.
That's fine.
But yeah, I think coming back into 2025, it just felt like we restarted too much without having like a day one kind of thing. We just got into it, and that split, it didn't go terrible, but ended up losing in Brazil too.
Do you like? I guess it must feel very strange going into 2025 and like feeling like you have to enact change when everything went so well. And it's like a situation of like, one, I'm not like the head or assistant coach, and two, it went so well. How could I possibly ever change anything? Was that like something that you had to go through?
Well, what you just said is a big reason why I wanted to come to Shopify. I didn't actually have like I couldn't like lay my like balls on the table that much on my like FlyQuest job. It was very much like I'm just boosting everyone around me in what they're already doing versus like I can change things extremely. So I would say like, yeah, it was definitely. I wish I was able to do that at that time more. Even though at that time I would say I didn't really think about doing it. So it's all just learning experiences really.
What changes would you have made to like bring FlyQuest into like the new season? Because obviously the formats were arse, so I don't think that would have helped any of the players who already have like a trouble like getting up for these domestic games. So is there anything like you specifically would have changed? Like if you could have had more influence on the team?
I think I wish I just like went harder on Inspired in a one-on-one situation when I was coaching him. Like really pushed him and how he thought about things harder. I think I didn't do this enough until like almost after I left, or like even just like the tail end of things. Like I almost let him do his own thing, but he could have been so much better in that sense. And then I guess the reason I go for like individual players when you ask me that question is it's like I almost don't think I could have had too much of an impact on like a macro side of things. Like when we came back into 2025 on FlyQuest, we did I led us through like a big I think performance coaches call them workshops is what they do.
Yeah.
And what we do and we basically just wrote down all of the things that we did in 2024. And we determined like, okay, what are the good things? What are the bad things? Let's keep these good things and then let's get rid of these bad things. Because even though we took Gen G to game 5, we were far from like perfect. And we actually have to keep trying, which you saw in Split 1, we lost. So it's like, obviously that transition from it's a classic sports story. It's not even esports. Just like you hit that pinnacle and it's like, how do you actually play the game after that pinnacle? Because the game doesn't end. It keeps going, even if you win.
Because actually, I have a kind of a two-part, and I think that the second part's the more like relevant. But how would you describe like Inspired in terms of like practice? Is he like one of these? Is he a good practice player, or is it hard to really get him motivated for like the practice?
Totally depends on where he's at mentally. I think if you take Inspired, who's on like the first half of the year with some rookies who he thinks are really talented, he might just be the best teammate and the best coach ever. Like he's really like that good IMO. But if he doesn't trust his teammates, if he doesn't think he can win with them, and he doesn't like find that process enjoyable or worth it, he can do the polar opposite, which is like just check out. And that's like that the conundrum of like the best players sometimes is like that problem.
Yeah, I actually don't think I can ask the second part because I honestly I can't see if Lions actually announced their thing yet, so I can't really ask the follow-up. So glad if you have like a follow-up to that, I'll let you
Yeah,
chime in.
sure. I actually want to kind of bring the talk to NRG as well. You've been part of 3 very different coaching staffs, I'll say. You had the 1,800 coaching staff members on NRG, and then you had like I think a sufficient amount between like Mithy, Nuke Duck. You had Arrow as well in there. Yourself, like it was a decent sized coaching staff. to go into Shopify, where it's basically just you and Revan, how does it compare having like 1900 coaches and now down to 2?
Well, definitely the NRG like coaching system was too much. Like we had way too many cooks in the kitchen, and like half the coaching staff was kind of doing nothing. Is kind of how it felt. It was a chill year for everyone involved. I mean, until we all lost our jobs. But uh, I think like there's definitely a sweet spot for coaching staffs. I think like 2 is fine, really. If you have 2 people who can really get along well with each other and have a similar like viewpoints on everything. Like me and Revan work really well because I would say we're very open with each other and we're very much like pretty similar in how we live and like coach, I would say. I mean, I actually me and Revan don't really live too similarly, but I would say we do like see life similarly, which allows us to like really communicate well. I feel like he's able to communicate what he thinks well, and I'm able to communicate what I think, and it kind of like we compromise very, very often, which is really, really fun with him. But then I think the FlyQuest staff having like the 4, it's like 1 performance coach, head assistant, and then a positional. You definitely are able to delegate a lot more, which is super nice. I would say the sweet spot is probably around 3 people, and like
So if it was up
1
to
or
you,
2
you'd add
auxiliary.
maybe 1 more coach.
Sorry?
If it were up to you, maybe you'd add like 1 more coach to Shopify.
I mean, we had Soaz and Selfie last year as well doing remote work, so I wouldn't be surprised if we do something like that again this year too.
All right, and I did want to push you on you talking about how you and Revan kind of see each life a similar way. I think you kind of corrected it towards the end. I think you guys compromise really, really well, and you're both very open. But it almost feels like you're the yin to his yang, or the other way around. Where like I remember when you first joined and I asked him about you, he was like, "Dude, this is no joke. I don't normally exaggerate, but this guy has completely changed my outlook on like everything related to what he does. Like I thought it was completely useless, and the only reason we brought him in was because he's one of the few coaches that I've ever seen players like everybody have good things to say about him, and no one said anything bad about him. So I was like, okay, like there has to be something good here. And then I saw it for myself, and I'm like, oh my god, this is like he fills in all of the spots that I maybe are like my blind spots.
Yeah.
And so maybe from that perspective, I think you guys are different.
No, for sure. We're such different people, which is like why I did like kind of correct myself. But I do think we very much share a lot of like human values, and that allows us to like trust each other a lot. And like there's just a big sense of respect between me and Revan, which like I really appreciate both ways. It's just like even though we're very different, we both respect and trust each other's vision. And that's why I kind of like think we're like similar humans in that aspect, because we're so open with each other and each other's perspectives, which I couldn't ask for like anything else other than just like allow people to be themselves, and yeah, I love that in people. So
All right, if we could, because we're kind of closing up here, if you could go through the 3 years, like 2023, 2024, and 2025, and pick like 1 lesson that you learned from those runs, what would that be?
I think the one thing that I've learned, because it's been very transformative years of my life ever since I stopped being a pro player. I think I had to start thinking a lot more about like what am I actually doing as a like person, versus like just playing the game, is to take risks and take every opportunity that is presented to yourself and just like do it to the best of your ability. I don't think I'd be where I am today if like I didn't try to be a performance coach in 2023 at all. And that was like a total shot in the dark. Was like after the 2023 NRG season, I said, fuck it, I'm going to go try to be a performance coach on pro teams and just try something new, which is something I don't think any pro players have ever done before. But it completely changed my life. And I think caring more about that really just drove home like a lot of stuff for me, like in and outside of work and LCS. It's like very nice to just try risky things and try them hard and do them well, because it'll even if it fails, which like I tried to make a coaching website. I don't know if anyone remembers this. I was plastering it all over Twitter for January of this year. Fucking 0 people signed up for the website. I had zero customers when I made this like whole project that I spent probably 300 hours on. Completely flopped, but I will never regret that time that I spent trying to do that, because it was like just something I tried to do on the side with my free time, and it was relevant to what I already do. Which is why I say just take risks and just do whatever you can, and shit will come. And every single thing that I'm going on a major tangent
No,
here,
you're good,
but every single thing that you like learn, it's all the skills stack on top of each other, and that's like what's gonna make you a better person. So just take risks and do things.
Martin, do you have some questions for Damonte?
I guess one of the big questions I think a lot of talking points and our good friend Shernock's always like preaching it is players streaming and players being present on social media. Is that something that you may want to see from like your players or other players in the league? Because I think a lot of what we used to see back in the day, and you was part of it as well, like the active streamer market, and I think like with TikTok and being able to just get a editor to just post clips for you and just gain that brand. Do you think LCS players need to be doing that for next year? Because we're seeing a lot of change next year, and there's going to be a lot of new faces. And that's like, do you think players need to be looking after their brands more?
Yeah, I do think so, absolutely. And I think the old guard who kind of doesn't stream or doesn't care about these things, kind of the people who were put into the LCS in like the financially best years where you kind of like didn't have to care about those things because there were so many fans as well. Those players are going to slowly start fading out because of that almost. I think the new players, like when I watch Busio or I watch Griffin and these guys are on Twitter all the time, it's very impactful for them to do these things, and it's very impactful to stream, and like they should be. I think everyone should be trying to have an online presence in some form, whether it's like tweeting or making TikToks or doing whatever. It's way more valuable than players think. I will say on the flip side, it does add a lot of stress to the players if they have to think about these kind of things. So I don't really blame or flame anyone for not doing it. I know there's been talks of like actually having things like this in contracts, which I actually think could be a good idea. And I do think like, at least for me, because I'm like trying to optimize the performance of my players, if that's going to happen, I would really want the teams to have editors for the players, so that way they can just like stream themselves playing the game, turn it off, and not have to care about anything else.
Yeah.
Because it is like, you do have to think about content creation in general if you're going to do it. It's not as simple as like recording a video and posting it. I mean, it kind of is in like vlogging sense or some styles, but the players don't want to think about extra things, especially the ones who've been around a while. But I will say I have hope for the Gen Z kids. I feel like they excite me a lot. I'm not gonna lie. Like they're nice and funny and online and tweeting and stuff. So it's good.
I think you make like a really great point about, I think orgs need to perhaps step up in some way to let the players just do their thing, turn the camera off, and then like you have people that are immediately uploading for you. It removes a lot of stress. I agree.
That would be awesome. I mean, I feel like if anyone wants like a little startup idea, that could be a sick thing to sell to some teams. So
I might actually take you up on that offer.
that could be awesome, honestly.
Yeah, I'll give you royalties. Don't worry. I do think though, like you are blazing sort of your own path. Like you said, I don't really know of a pro player, at least in League of Legends, that has become a performance coach. And I think this year you have a challenge wherein allegedly you're going to have a player that is from a very, very different background who hasn't played here. And obviously things are done very differently where he's from. And so I think that's going to also be like, you don't have a book that you can go to be like, how do you do this for this specific thing? You have to kind of figure that out. And as a Shopify fan, I'm really hoping that you can, especially considering his personality is also quite unique as compared to someone like a Morgan, for example.
Which is cool because I almost feel like it brings me back to 2017 on Echo Fox. Like when Looper first came to NA, it's just like Looper didn't speak any English, but we figured it out, and he was a good kid, and like it was cool. So it's exciting. Is how I see it. It'll be a cool new challenge.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, hopefully it works and we bring Bivoy to Worlds.
Yes,
Let's
make that a hashtag.
Hell yeah. All right, thank you so much for joining us, and as always, we'll put like your socials in the description, and people can follow you, and who knows, maybe you'll get a sign up on your website now.
Awesome. Hell yeah. The website is down though, so that's not going to work.
Unlucky. All right.
But thank you very much for having me, and thank you for letting me yap. That was a good time.
No worries. If you win LCS, will you promise to put the website back up?
Sure, I'll do that just
when
for you.
You win LCS.
As long as you're my first subscriber.
I will play on 150 ping. I will be committed to it.
Okay, sounds good.
All right.